chosen one. Your recent action was so powerful that God released a miracle. For you, there are moments in life that seem small to everyone else, but heaven sees them differently. There are moments in life that seem small to everyone else, but heaven sees them differently. The world may have ignored your tears. The people around you may have overlooked your sacrifice. Even those closest to you may never understand the battle you fought in silence. But God saw it, and what you recently did changed something in the spiritual realm. This was not ordinary. This was not random. This was not just another painful chapter in your life. No, your recent action carried spiritual weight. It carried obedience. It carried faith. It carried surrender. And because of that one decision, heaven moved. You thought you were just surviving, but spiritually, you were passing a test that many people fail. While others chose bitterness, you chose faith. While others chose revenge, you chose peace. While others betrayed you, you stayed loyal to your spirit. And now something is happening behind the scenes. A miracle has been released. Not because you are perfect, not because life has been easy, but because your spirit remained alive in darkness. You have no idea how rare that is. Most people become cold after betrayal. Most people lose themselves after rejection. Most people stop believing after disappointment. But you didn't. Even exhausted, you still prayed. Even broken, you still hoped. Even abandoned, you still believed. And heaven noticed. This message found you because your season is changing. The waiting is not pointless anymore. The isolation was not punishment. The confusion was not the end. God was preparing you in secret, because chosen people are never built in comfort. They are built in isolation, in betrayal, in silence, in nights where nobody checked on them. You know exactly what that feels like. You smiled in public while silently collapsing inside. You carried burdens nobody knew about. You fought spiritual battles nobody could see. And yet, you kept going. That is why this miracle is different. This is not just a blessing. This is confirmation. Confirmation that heaven has been watching your journey the entire time. Something powerful is about to enter your life. A door, a healing, a breakthrough, a divine connection, an unexpected opportunity, a restoration. But before it arrives, you must understand why this miracle was released, because it all traces back to one recent action, one decision, one painful moment where you chose faith instead of fear. And that moment changed everything. So stay with this message until the end, because what God is about to reveal to you may explain every painful season you've endured. And deep down, your spirit already knows. You were never ordinary. You were chosen. There was a moment recently when you felt completely alone. Nobody clapped for you. Nobody celebrated your strength. Nobody truly understood what it cost you to keep moving. But that moment mattered more than you realize, because while the world saw weakness, heaven saw obedience. You see, chosen people often mistake spiritual warfare for personal failure. They think the resistance means they are cursed. They think the delay means God forgot them. But what if the opposite is true? What if the pressure around your life exists because something extraordinary is inside you? The enemy does not attack empty vessels. Darkness does not fear ordinary energy. The spiritual attacks became stronger because your spirit became stronger. And recently, you did something that shifted the atmosphere around your destiny. Maybe you walked away from someone who kept draining your soul. Maybe you forgave someone who shattered your heart. Maybe you resisted the temptation to become bitter. Maybe you prayed when your mind was drowning in fear. Maybe you kept going when every part of you wanted to give up. Whatever it was, heaven saw it. And that action carried power. You thought nobody noticed your silent tears. But God collects every tear from chosen souls, every lonely night, every hidden sacrifice, every battle fought in silence. None of it was wasted. There are people who only stay faithful when life is easy. But your faith survived pain. That is rare. You kept showing up even when your heart was exhausted. You kept believing even when reality gave you no evidence. That level of faith activates divine movement. And the strange part is, you almost gave up right before the breakthrough. Isn't it amazing how darkness becomes loudest before the light appears? Think about the recent weeks. The confusion, the emotional heaviness, the exhaustion, the strange feeling that something was ending. That was not your imagination. A spiritual chapter was closing. The old version of you cannot enter the next season. That is why life felt uncomfortable. God had to remove distractions, remove fake people, remove old thinking, remove emotional chains, and yes, it hurt. Because sometimes healing feels like loss before it feels like freedom. You cried over people who were never meant to stay. You begged for doors that were never meant to open. You questioned your worth because others failed to recognize your value. But now you see differently. Some people were assignments, not companions. Some doors were traps disguised as opportunities. Some delays were protection. And recently, your spirit finally stopped chasing what God was trying to remove. That decision released power. Because surrender is one of the highest forms of spiritual strength. Most people think power means control. But divine power often appears through release. The moment you stopped forcing, heaven started moving. The moment you surrendered the outcome, miracles began forming. The moment you trusted God in uncertainty, the spiritual atmosphere shifted. That is why your energy feels different lately. You are noticing things more deeply. Your intuition is sharper. You feel disconnected from shallow conversations. You no longer fit into places that once felt familiar. That is spiritual awakening. Your soul is evolving. Chosen people always go through isolation before elevation. Why? Because isolation removes noise. It reveals truth. It forces you to hear God more clearly. And let's be honest, the isolation nearly broke you. There were nights you felt forgotten, moments you questioned your purpose, days you wondered if anyone truly cared. But what felt like abandonment was actually preparation. God was separating you from environments that could not carry your future. A seed cannot become a tree while staying exposed on the surface. It must first disappear underground, in darkness, in silence. In pressure, that is where transformation happens. And that is exactly what happened to you. You were hidden because you were growing. The betrayal was part of the process, too. Chosen people experience deep betrayal because betrayal reveals hidden truth. God allows masks to fall. He allows fake loyalty to expose itself. He allows separation before elevation. And yes, it wounded you deeply. You gave your heart to people who misunderstood you. You stayed loyal to people who secretly envied your light. You tried to save relationships that were draining your spirit. But eventually, God stepped in, not to punish you, but to protect your destiny. Some people cannot go where you are going, and deep down, your spirit knew that already. That is why certain connections suddenly collapsed. That is why conversations changed. That is why your circle became smaller. It was divine separation, because your next season requires clarity. You are entering a season where discernment will become your greatest protection. Not everyone who smiles supports you. Not everyone who praises you loves you. Not everyone close to you deserves access to your spirit. And God has been teaching you that lesson carefully. The pain matured your soul. You no longer seek validation the way you used to. You no longer beg to be understood. You no longer shrink yourself to make others comfortable. That is growth. And growth always threatens people who benefited from your weakness. Some people wanted the old version of you, the exhausted version, the insecure version, the version that tolerated disrespect, but that version is disappearing, because suffering transformed you. Now there is a calm strength in your spirit, a quiet wisdom, a deeper awareness, and heaven responds to transformed hearts. The miracle released for you is connected to alignment. You finally reached a place where your soul stopped settling. You started choosing peace over chaos, truth over illusion, faith over fear, and the spiritual realm reacted immediately. You may not see the full miracle yet, but movement has already started. Opportunities are shifting. People are being repositioned. Doors are opening silently. Protection is surrounding you. Even the delays are working for you now. There are conversations happening about you that you know nothing about. There are blessings approaching that were delayed for perfect timing. There are answers coming that will suddenly make your past make sense, because God never wastes pain. Every tear prepared your compassion. Every betrayal sharpened your discernment. Every delay strengthened your patience. Every lonely season deepened your connection with God. Nothing was random. You survived things that should have destroyed your spirit. And honestly, some people are shocked you are still standing. They expected your heartbreak to break you. They expected the pressure to silence you. They expected the isolation to destroy your confidence. But instead, you evolved. That is what happens when God protects a chosen soul. The attacks become testimonies. The wounds become wisdom. The pain becomes power. And now your life is becoming proof that darkness cannot stop what heaven has chosen. This next season will feel unfamiliar because you are no longer operating from survival mode. For years, you carried fear. Fear of loss, fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of abandonment, but slowly God has been removing those chains. You are beginning to understand that your value was never dependent on human approval. You were chosen before anyone accepted you. That truth changes everything. Because once a chosen person realizes their identity, nothing can control them anymore. Not manipulation, not rejection, not betrayal, not fear. And that realization triggered spiritual movement. Your recent action was proof that your soul is no longer asleep. You finally acted from faith instead of wounds. You finally listened to your spirit instead of your fear. You finally trusted God even without visible evidence. That is why the miracle was released, because heaven responds to faith, not fake perfection, not performance, not public image, real faith, the kind that survives darkness. And you have that kind of faith, even when you doubted yourself, even when you cried alone, even when your prayers felt unanswered. Your spirit kept reaching upward. That is why this message found you today, because your breakthrough is closer than you think. Do not let temporary emotions convince you that nothing is happening. The spiritual realm moves in silence first. Roots grow underground before trees appear above the surface. And right now, your roots are becoming stronger than ever. You are being prepared for something bigger than your current understanding. A purpose, a calling, a life that finally reflects the battles you survived. The miracle is not only external, the real miracle is who you are becoming, stronger, wiser, more discerning, more connected to God, more fearless. And once your inner world changes, the outer world follows. So do not go backward now. Do not reconnect with what God removed. Do not doubt what your spirit already knows. Do not lower your standards because loneliness feels heavy. Protect your peace. Protect your spirit. Protect your destiny, because something holy is unfolding. And very soon, the same people who overlooked you will witness what God does in your life, not for your ego, but as proof that faith still moves mountains. Proof that chosen souls cannot be destroyed. Proof that divine timing is real. Your story is not ending in defeat, it is transforming into testimony. And the miracle has already begun. There is a question your heart has carried for a long time. Why did I have to go through so much? Why the rejection? Why the loneliness? Why the betrayal? Why the waiting? Why the constant battles? You prayed, you stayed kind, you tried to do the right thing, yet life still tested you in ways that felt unbearable. There were moments when you looked around and wondered why others seemed blessed while you struggled in silence. And slowly, a dangerous thought entered your mind. Maybe God forgot me. But God never forgot you. In fact, the intensity of your journey was proof that your destiny carries weight. You were not being punished. You were being prepared. Chosen souls are trained differently, because ordinary strength cannot carry extraordinary purpose. The pain was building spiritual muscles inside you. Every disappointment forced you inward. Every heartbreak forced you closer to God. Every betrayal forced you to awaken, and awakening changes everything. Most people live asleep spiritually. They follow crowds. They chase validation. They ignore their soul. But suffering woke you up. Pain stripped illusions away. You started seeing people differently. You started noticing hidden energy. You started feeling when something was spiritually wrong. That sensitivity was not weakness. It was discernment being born. God had to separate you from superficial living, because your calling requires depth. And depth is expensive. It costs comfort. It costs relationships. It costs old identities. That is why your transformation felt painful. You were shedding versions of yourself that could not survive the next level. And one of the hardest parts was realizing that some people only loved the version of you they could control. The moment you started healing, they became uncomfortable. The moment you started valuing yourself, they pulled away. The moment you stopped tolerating disrespect, conflict appeared. Why? Because healed people expose unhealthy environments. Your growth forced hidden truths into the light. Some people were attached to your brokenness, not your destiny. And God had to reveal that. It hurt because your heart was genuine. You loved deeply. You stayed loyal. You gave chances. You tried to understand everyone. But chosen people often overextend themselves because they see potential in others. And sadly, not everyone deserves access to your spirit. That lesson came through pain. But now your soul is wiser. You are beginning to understand that boundaries are spiritual protection. Not everyone deserves your energy. Not everyone deserves your trust. Not everyone deserves your presence. And God has been teaching you to stop pouring into empty places, because your energy carries purpose. Have you noticed how different you feel lately? The things that once entertained you no longer satisfy you. The conversations feel shallow. The distractions feel empty. That is because your soul is evolving. You are being called higher. And higher callings require separation. Eagles do not fly with every bird. Sometimes God isolates chosen people because the noise of the world interferes with divine direction. And yes, isolation can feel painful, especially when you are naturally loving, especially when you crave understanding, especially when you are tired. The old version of you would have chased people who abandoned you. The old version of you would have begged for acceptance. The old version of you would have doubted your worth. But now, you are finally realizing your value. You are finally understanding that rejection was redirection. Some doors closed because they were too small for your destiny. Some relationships ended because they would have delayed your calling. Some opportunities disappeared because they carried hidden destruction. God protected you in ways you did not recognize. Even unanswered prayers were protection. One day you will look back and thank God for every delay, because if certain things had happened when you wanted them to, they would have destroyed you. You were not ready yet. But now, something is changing. You can feel it. There is a strange pull in your spirit. A sense that your old life is ending. A feeling that something powerful is approaching. That feeling is real. The miracle released for you is connected to divine timing. God waited until your spirit matured, until your heart became stronger, until your discernment sharpened, because blessings without wisdom become burdens. You had to grow first, and you did, even through tears, even through confusion, even through seasons where nothing made sense. You kept evolving. That is why heaven trusts you with what is coming next. You are entering a season where things will begin aligning unexpectedly. Opportunities, connections, healing, clarity, provision, not because life suddenly became easy, but because your spirit reached alignment. You stopped chasing validation. You stopped begging to be chosen by people. You finally realized that being chosen by God is enough. That realization unlocked something spiritually. The fear that controlled you is losing power. And once fear leaves, miracles enter. Because fear blocks faith. For years, fear whispered lies into your spirit. You are behind. You are not enough. You will always struggle. You will never heal. But those lies are breaking now. God has been rebuilding your identity from the inside. You are not weak for feeling deeply. You are not cursed because life was difficult. You are not forgotten because the journey took longer. You were being transformed. Coal experiences pressure before becoming a diamond, and your pressure created strength. The miracle approaching your life is not random luck. It is harvest. A harvest for every silent battle, every act of obedience, every moment you stayed faithful while exhausted. And one thing you must understand is this: God often blesses chosen people suddenly. After years of silence, everything changes quickly. Doors open. Favor appears. Right people arrive. Clarity replaces confusion, because divine timing is never late. It only feels late while you are waiting. But when the breakthrough arrives, you realize every painful chapter prepared you perfectly. Even now, things are shifting around you. Some people are drifting away because they cannot enter your next season. Some habits are disappearing because they no longer align with your spirit. Some environments feel uncomfortable because your soul has outgrown them. Do not resist this transition. Transformation feels uncomfortable because growth requires release. And yes, part of you misses the familiar. Even toxic familiarity can feel comforting. But your spirit knows better now. You cannot shrink yourself anymore. You cannot abandon your healing anymore. You cannot betray your own soul anymore. You have survived too much to return to who you used to be. That version of you carried pain without boundaries. This version carries wisdom, and wisdom changes destiny.